Yes, we're good to go now, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. Well, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to this, our very last full council meeting of Daventry District Council, a council that's been in existence for 47 years. And no doubt that will come up in the public meeting tonight, but also having a private session where some of us will be celebrating or commiserating, depending, I think it's a celebration actually, of what we've achieved in 47 years of this council. So a very warm welcome to everyone. I'm going to ask Reverend Dawn Stokes now, or Dawn, sorry, Dawn, to say a few prayers, please.
Thank you, Chair. Before I pray, I'd just like to say thank you to you all. It's been an honour and a privilege to be invited to your meetings and to pray with you every time you've met.
It's always nice to have you, Dawn, here. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's pray. Lord God, as we meet for the last time this evening, our minds are filled with mixed emotions. I pray that each member of Daventry District Council will have peace in their hearts as they prepare to hand over to the new unitary authority. This evening, may we share and receive matters of business with open minds and in the spirit of fairness, right thought and speech. And may all our councillors be aware that their time and talents have been put to much good use over the years, and that their willingness to serve their communities has been very much appreciated. Bless each person on this council, encourage them in continued service and work for the common good, that others may see the benefits of serving the local population and want to join in. Give us all a sense of hope as we look forward to this coming spring and summer with optimism, and give us a new sense of purpose as we look forward together into the future. Help us to keep the lessons we have learned during the pandemic at the forefront of our minds as we continue to serve people in different ways. Amen.
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 And I'd just like to pray for Steve Osborne, who it's been said is in hospital. So, Lord, we bring Steve before you. We pray for the medical staff looking after him, that they will determine the best course of treatment. Lord, may Steve know your presence with him at this time. Take away any anxiety and fill him with your peace. Amen.
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 Thank you much indeed, Dawn. That's very nice. Thank you much indeed for those kind words. And you're always welcome to stay as long as you want. Don't feel you have to go. This is our last meeting, so it's an unusual one. So we won't be having another one. So I just want to move on to the minutes now. Item 2, to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the council held on the 3rd of December 2020 and the extraordinary meeting of the council held on the 18th of February 2021, which are in your papers. Obviously, queries relating to the accuracy of the minutes must be submitted to the writing to the monitoring officer by noon on Wednesday, the 17th of March. Have you had any comments, monitoring officer?
None received, Chairman.
Thank you. Are you happy to agree the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. We now move on to apologies for absence.
Well, the only one that, of course, is Councillor Osborne that I've had.
Councillor Osborne for the Conservatives. Anyone from Labour? Sorry, Cecile? No. Anyone from Labour? No apologies. No one else. Okay, so just Steve Osborne then. Thank you, Alan. We now move on to declarations.
Stephen Dabbs got his hand up. Chris.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Dabbs.
Yeah, Councillor Randall is having problems getting in. So if I could just see where Tony's got to with sending the message. I noticed that Councillor Rich is in, but I haven't seen Councillor Randall yet. She's ready and willing to join because I've just had a conversation with her.
Tony, can you help?
Yes, Chairman, we are sending a link out to Councillor Randall. She will have already received one, but we'll follow it up.
Righty ho.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. Can we now move on to declarations of members' interests? Declare them now at the time of the meeting where they're relevant, whichever you prefer. And I come to Chairman's announcements. I'm not going to take long on this. Clearly, I just want to say we have a meeting after this one, a private meeting, but in the public arena, I'd just like to thank, on behalf of all members, the work and hard dedication of our officers over many, many years in this council, and they've done an excellent job on behalf of the people we all represent. We don't always agree, which is part of the dynamic of councillors and officers, but overall we've achieved an enormous amount at Daventry, and I hope that people recognise the legacy that we as a council will be leaving for the people of Daventry District. So on that note, I just want to also say tonight sorry, Councillor Dabbs is up and down like a yo-yo. Sorry, you're just right in front of my screen there, Stephen. I just want to say also, it's an absolute pleasure to have been the last chairman of this council, I should say. Sorry, Richard, last chairman of this council, and it's been an absolute privilege to have served. I'm sure many members feel the same way. And I just wanted to mention a few members, if I may. One to be mentioned already, Councillor Osborne. Councillor Osborne's been on this council for a long, long time, and he's also been our chair of planning for many years. And I think Steve, I'm very sorry to hear about his in hospital tonight. And I did speak to him yesterday. He wasn't very well when I spoke to him yesterday. And I'm sure we all wish him the very, very best in recovering. I also like to recognise John Shepherd, who's been on this council since 1984. That's a long time, John, 37 years. I bet you're looking a bit older now, but not much. I've seen photos of you when you were back in those days. I also like to recognise Alan Hills for his wonderful efforts on leisure and culture throughout the district as a portfolio holder since 2002. He's particularly dedicated to his roles. Also Mike Warren on his work on licensing, and particularly in his work in the Moulton Overston area of his patch, because I know how much work Mike's done in that area, and I'm sure he's going to get recognition for that in due course. I also like to mention our new leader, of course, not that new now, but Richard Auger and Adam Brown have done an excellent job when me and Liz stood down. And of course, I have to mention Liz, because Liz has been with me on the whole journey since 1998. And without Liz, it would have been far harder. Liz is an absolute stalwart. You don't see what she does, but she does a lot behind the scenes. And she's a great support for me, the group as a whole, and senior members. So that's just some. I'm sure I might speak for more later on in the evening, but I'm just starting on that point now. Apart from that, we've got a raffle, as you know, on the private session coming up from one of my charities this year, well, two of my charities. It's been a particularly difficult year for charity work because obviously with COVID, we can't hold events. But I think you might be surprised, we have raised a decent sum of money actually on that raffle. So we'll do that in the private session. So without further ado, I now move on to questions under Council Procedure Rules 10 and 11. Tony, in fact, you've got them in front of you. You've got the questions from the public. It's only one, I think. And I'll just get them up now, sorry. Yeah. So it's actually Chris Myers. Chris, it's your question, sir. Your question to the leader. Thank you.
Good evening and good luck to all of you in your future involvement in politics or not, as the case may be.
Thank you, Chris, and the same to you, sir.
Several environmental groups throughout the district have benefited from the £1,000 climate action grants offered by the district council under the Action on Climate Change initiative. I also hear that the climate change programme has been managed efficiently and enthusiastically by the Environment Improvement Officer and whoever helps him. My question is, how will the legacy of this invaluable work be carried forward into the West Northamptonshire Unitary Authority?
Thank you. Councillor Auger.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Mr. Myers, and thank you for your questions over a period of time. It's always good to see the public involved. I particularly like this part of our proceedings where we hear from the people we represent. So thank you, sir. In responding to your question, well, the climate emergency has been a high priority for Daventry District Council, and in our successful endeavours, we have always taken steps to ensure that the legacy of our work will be felt within the new West Northamptonshire Council. In declaring a climate emergency last year, we made sure to develop a one-year action plan with actions both for us to carry out before becoming a unitary and actions to influence the future climate change work within West Northamptonshire Council. This includes everything from setting ambitious targets on carbon reduction across the future authority unitary area to our internal affairs and energy management. While we do not know what shape the future strategies and initiatives of West Northamptonshire Council will be, that will be for them and the elected members, we do know that many of our existing activities will continue to leave legacy in years to come. Our action on climate change grant funding for communities will leave a physical impact in trees, wildflower meadows, wetlands, energy improvement measures, and many other projects across the district, which will continue to provide environmental benefits long into the future. Through our renewable energy switching scheme, hundreds of households have had an opportunity to switch onto fully renewable energy tariffs while saving money on their electricity bills. We have started to install electric vehicle charging points across the community, a small step at the moment, but nevertheless a start. And our work to engage parish councils, schools and businesses in sustainability initiatives will have a lasting, sustainable impact. All of this and more will contribute and influence West Northamptonshire Council in tackling future climate change initiatives going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mr. Myers. We move on now to questions from members of the council. And of course, members of the council have the right, if they wish, to ask a supplementary. The first question tonight comes from Councillor Adam Brown to Councillor David James as the Economic Regeneration Employment Portfolio Holder.
Thank you, Chairman. Can Councillor James please update Council on the progress of Daventry's new cinema, which of course the Daventry Labour Party previously attempted to prevent construction of via a motion to this council?
Councillor James.
Point of order, Chair, please.
Sorry, Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, point of order. I don't accept that question. I think there's elements in it that are not entirely in accordance with my memory. Can I quote some minutes to you,
No,
Chair?
you can't, Councillor Dabbs. This is a question from a member of the council, and he has the right to ask the question.
Where's my right of reply to that question?
No, you can't. No, it's not your right to reply. It's actually Councillor James is going to reply to the question, because that's who the question's, aimed at. Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I thank Councillor Brown for his question. The cinema is approaching completion, with our contractor, Wilmot Dixon, reporting it is ready to hand the cinema building over for internal fit out at the end of this month. We look forward to it opening in the summer, when the relaxation of COVID restrictions should mean people can enjoy going out once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Brown, do you want a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chairman. Would Councillor James agree with me that the near opening of the cinema underlines the importance of having an ambitious and coherent vision for the future of Daventry as we move forward into the future within West Northamptonshire?
Councillor James?
Yes, I do agree with that, and particularly in this case where we were faced with a situation knowing that Daventry District Council would come to an end at that time within a year or two, and but of course it was extended. What we did was to provide a legacy for Daventry, which was attainable and achievable within the timescale of the residue of the life of the district council. And not only that, this was a project that was mostly handled in-house with our own project manager. We took on a task which a lot of people thought would be subject to all sorts of problems. And all of those problems were successfully overcome, including the Burgage Wall, which I'm pleased to report is done. And it's been done. It really is a wonderful building. I'm surprised that it doesn't win a prize. I think it was suggested at one stage that it might win some sort of award. And I really do look forward not only to the completion of the public realm around the cinema, but also going to the cinema itself and enjoying the experience of being able to go to a cinema in Daventry, perhaps have a bite to eat afterwards in one of the adjoining restaurants. And it does show and demonstrate what can be achieved by having some sort of imagination and vision. And I'm grateful really to the officers of the council and all those involved with it, and particularly those of you who have supported this, so that we have provided Daventry with a start on our vision for the town centre as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. We now move on to a second question from Councillor Brown to Councillor Hill, Community Leisure.
Chairman.
Sorry,
Chairman.
Councillor Randall. Sorry.
Can I just make a point of order? The fact that when we are quoted in a question that we haven't been able to see until this afternoon, we should be able to put across the correct facts. And the fact was that when we put forward a motion, it was all about that for 3 years you'd been trying to find an operator and hadn't been able to find one. And the motion was that if one wasn't found within 3 months, then to halt the plans so as you didn't waste public money like you have on the canal arm and like you have on the Foskey.
Please, that's it. Thank you,
Chairman.
No
Just
point of order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hills, please, to respond to Councillor Brown's question.
Question out, Chairman.
Sorry?
So, thank you. Well, I was glad to hear Councillor Randall's admission that they did try to prevent the construction of the cinema, but I'd be grateful if Councillor Hills could update Council on the progress of Moulton Leisure Centre, what benefits that legacy project will bring to residents in the easternmost part of our district, and when they'll be able to start enjoying this exciting new facility.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Hills.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Pardon me. Firstly, I would like to thank Councillor Brown for this question. Especially as I actually visited the centre yesterday, and we will be releasing a press release shortly on this. Now, as to the nitty-gritty of the question, we were set to open the centre with a limited range of facilities way back in January, but we had to put this on hold due to the lockdown. However, during the lockdown, British Swimming have had use of the pool for training purposes, etc. So it has served a very good function nationally. The partnership with everyone active has been good. And together we have been working hard to ensure that some facilities, such as the gym and the pool, will be able to open on the 12th of April, with group facilities following on the 17th of May, which is in line with the government's COVID instructions. The residents of Moulton and the surrounding area will benefit from a first-class leisure centre, offering a full range of diverse facilities, such as a 6-lane swimming pool with a movable floor, 2 therapy pools with a changing area, specially catering for baby and preschool swimming, a large gym, which is a first-class gym with all the latest equipment. The centre will also have the first health spa in the area with a steam room, sauna, spa pool, 60-station fitness suite, plus a multi-activity studio and a spin studio. It is also worth noting that the car park has been vastly extended. And plus, it also has 6 electric charging points, which are waiting to be activated once we get the necessary permission. In my portfolio role, I have always promoted and encouraged physical activity. And the new centre will provide residents of the eastern part of our district with everything they need to keep active and fit. The local council has been supported, as have the ward members, Councillors Mike Warren and Councillor Daniel Cribbin. It shows what can be achieved by us working together. And I firmly believe we are leaving a superb legacy to take forward into the new unitary. and fulfil what has been a long-term ambition of the District Council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. Do you have a second question, Councillor Brown?
Oh, yeah, just to clarify, if I may, Chairman, if Councillor Hills can confirm that this project won't simply benefit people in Moulton, but it will also be widely used, we hope, by people in areas such as Brixworth and the surrounding villages, who will now not have to make journeys into Northampton to access leisure centres there, but will have a facility on their doorstep, which will have environmental benefits and other such improvements for the residents in Brixworth and the surrounding area.
Councillor Hills?
Yes, I totally agree. And I did state that the residents of Moulton and the surrounding area, and I believe they will all benefit from what there is there to offer. And I think that they will have a first-class leisure centre that is second to none. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hills. We now have a question for the leader from Councillor Stephen Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thought I'd ask a nice little innocuous question tonight, but I wish I hadn't in some respects, with the turn of the meeting going the way it is. Here it is anyway. Historical artefacts. Now the DDC will soon cease to exist, there will be a legacy both of history and historical artefacts, which could help in future years to illustrate the story of this council in this town and district. I'm sure there must be many items of which I and the public in general have little knowledge, which might resonate amongst us or jog old and not so old memories. Will the leader confirm that these artefacts will be properly taken care of and how they will be taken care of after this council's demise? I would suggest relevant items are kept in the locality, so should be offered or passed over to the town council or museum. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Leader.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dabbs, for your question. As it happens, the council does not hold much in the way of historical artefacts, as those that were deliberately held for historical purposes were in fact transferred to Daventry Town Council for the Daventry Museum some years ago. So I think we're rather ahead of your suggestion. So yeah, that's absolutely the right place for them, and most of them are in there now. The council does own a painting of the Battle of Naseby, but that relates to the location in the district, well outside Daventry Town. Its future will be determined by West Northants Council, so it might well still end up at the museum, but that's for the West Northants Council to decide. Items such as old council meetings will be transferred to the Northamptonshire Archive Service in the normal way. This provides a safe environment in which they can be preserved, COVID permitting, and the public can have access to them for research. There is also a collection of archaeological items in storage. It is envisaged that these will in due course be placed in the art storage facility at Chester Farm. And again, this is designed to allow suitable storage and for the public to have access to them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a second question, Councillor Dabbs?
No follow-up, Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lead. Move on to Councillor Ritchie now. Councillor Ritchie, please. Question to the Leader. Is Councillor Ritchie there?
Chairman, yes, he's there. He appears to be speaking, but we can't hear him. You're not on mute according to the system, Councillor Ritchie.
That's strange. Can I come back to Councillor Ritchie and hopefully we can get that sorted out? Can I move on to Councillor Jonathan Harris now? Your question, Jonathan, to the Leader.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, we seem to be well and truly in electioneering mode tonight in Soundbite City. So I hope my question is actually really seeking truly information and knowledge. So here it is. Thank you, Chair. Last week, Channel 4 Dispatches produced a programme which indicated that there has been a significant uplift in councils across the UK sending some recycling waste for incineration, energy from waste programme, which is resulting in these plants producing higher volumes of carbon emissions than any of our coal-fired plants. In 2019, 11.6 million tonnes of waste were incinerated, with 10.9 million tonnes being sent for recycling. The overall national recycling figure has stalled at 45% for the last 4 years, for the last 5 years, missing the government's own target of 50% by 2020. It is also recognised that this figure measures only the amount of waste collected from households and not actually fully processed. The figures suggest that 11% of waste put out for recycling is actually being incinerated. There are just 4 coal-fired plants remaining in the UK, which are due to be phased out in the next 3 years. In 2019, they produced 11.7 tonnes of carbon emissions. There are, by comparison, 48 energy-generating incinerators producing 12.6 million tonnes of carbon emissions. DDC has recently produced a helpful short video recently indicating that last year it sent 2,657 tonnes of food waste to an anaerobic digester and 9,720 tonnes of cans, glass, paper, cardboard and plastic for processing before being made into new products. Would the leader please provide information on, is this the actual amount of material recycled or the figures for collected waste for recycling? Whether any waste or recycling material has been sent to incineration, which could have been recycled if the processes existed to do so, and how Daventry currently compares in relation to other councils across the UK in terms of recycling performance. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Harris. Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Harris, for your question. The figures quoted are the material collected for recycling. A proportion of this material is not actually suitable for recycling and as such is not recycled. The average contamination figure for April 2020 to February 2021 was 16%. The council and its partners run educational campaigns to encourage recycling and discourage contamination. As I was researching this question, this is certainly one area where I think we can do some stuff if elected into the new authority. There are certain materials which could in principle be recycled but are uneconomic to recycle, or it would be worse environmentally to do so. Over time, it may be possible to change this. Currently, these are processed under the County Council's residual waste contracts, and in most cases, this means they are made into refuse-derived fuel and used to generate heat or electricity. The 2019-2020 data provided by DEFRA shows that the council had a recycling rate of 53.4%. That's 52nd highest recycling rate out of 310 English councils. Now, I'm sure that we can do better in the new authority, but that certainly is a very, very good starting point. This is the highest figure in 10 years of data and probably the best figure the council has ever achieved. This is also true of the residual waste per household. This shows the positive effects of the 1, 2, 3 plus service that this council introduced a year or so ago. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Leader. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Harris?
None from me, thank you, Chair.
Thank you much indeed. Councillor Ritchie, can you hear us now? Are you back online?
I've always been able to hear you, Chair, but can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Do you want to ask your question, Councillor Ritchie?
Yeah.
Thank you.
My question is, does the Leader of the Council have anything to say to those who live on or near Ashby Road, or whose children must cross it on their way to school, about neither Northampton County Council nor Daventry District Council being willing to act on the recommendations for traffic calming measures made by a DDC paid consultant in 2016?
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Ritchie, for your question. Firstly, I would remind the Council that I responded to the very similar question from Councillor Daps last December, and prior to that, my predecessor, Councillor Miller, when he was Leader, responded to a similar question, Councillor Ritchie, in October 2017. The position throughout has been made clear. Daventry District Council had no obligation or duty in this matter. However, and there's a big however, I have worked with Councillor Ritchie on several projects And in December, I offered to work with Councillor Dabbs regarding Ashby Road. Councillor Ritchie knows how tough it is to find money to fund these types of projects, and it takes years, sometimes years, to achieve them. When I was first elected in Daventry, I inherited a resurfacing project that took me 4 years of petitioning and lobbying to get the money to complete it, but I did. It is the responsibility of Councillor Ritchie and me and all of those who will be elected to work on behalf of the communities we represent. I hope whoever is elected to the new authority will continue to campaign on behalf of the people of Ashby Road and deliver the traffic calming measures identified in 2016. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Orger. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Ritchie?
My follow-up question is really, would the Leader of the Council answer the first one? Because while what he has said is obviously true, my question is, what has he actually got to say to people? We have often in this council heard it said that traffic calming and traffic measures are the responsibility of the county council. He has been for the last 5 years the county council responsible for the area. I have seen and I have not been made aware of any ongoing discussions to try to resolve the problems of Ashby Road. And if that is the case, then I think that at least the council should be absolutely honest and say that it is an absolutely nothing. It has heard there are many appeals for getting something done, that the council was quite prepared to put money into traffic calming in Staverton, where there was no school that people had to cross the road to get to. And yet, when it comes to Ashby Road, nothing at all has been done.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Ritchie knows very well, and it's been a little disingenuous, that I've worked with him on trying to support the Ashby Road programme. But he also knows, which he doesn't seem to tell the electorate, that there are many roads that require traffic calming measures. There is only a certain amount of money. Our job, your job, is to continually fight for the people you represent. And if you're not in a position or willing to fight for them, or work with councillors like me on their behalf, then maybe they should be electing somebody else to represent them. Now, you know how serious I have been about protecting people. I will continually work for the people I represent to get the facilities and the traffic calming measures they deserve, and I will not stop until I achieve it. I will always do my best for them. That's what I would tell them. I will do my best, but there are competing projects, and we have to make a lot of noise, and we have to persuade the powers that be to ensure that money should be going to Ashby Road. And hopefully in the future, Councillor Ritchie, you'll work more with people like me to actually to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orger. We move on to a new question now from Councillor Catherine Lomax.
Thank you, Chairman. This council and all political groups have been actively promoting postal voting for the forthcoming elections. With this in mind, would the leader provide in percentage terms what the uplift in postal vote registration has been to date? In fact, has there been one? Thank you.
Thank you, dear Councillor Lomax. Leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lomax. Sorry, I was rather distracted myself. And thank you, Chair, for the chance to answer this. Thank you for your questions. It is difficult to make clear comparisons of postal voting over previous elections because of the different types of elections held and the varying turnout rates. However, experience tells us that postal votes continue to increase in popularity. There has been a small increase of 2.6% in postal voting registration over the past 12 months, and we expect, because of our current situation, that will step up in coming weeks. With the promotions that are going out through the election, Daventry calling, inserts in council tax, and the distribution of poll cards. And I'm pleased to announce to the council that me and my wife have signed up to postal votes, whereby before we've always enjoyed that physical act of going to a polling booth and to making our mark. very traditional, but we felt in these circumstances, it's important that we lessen activity whilst we come out of COVID, and hopefully many others will do likewise. And it's up to all politicians to encourage the people we represent to do the same. We want to keep people safe this election. We want to have a very thorough and full election. So let's do our bit in trying to promote postal votes. Hopefully we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orger. Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Lomax?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you indeed. We come to our final question, Councillor Jonathan Harris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question, a final question, I think, from members this evening. At the extraordinary meeting last month, in one of my questions that evening, I asked what additional resource the Revenue and Benefits team had received to support them during the COVID crisis. My recollection was that the answer was unknown, but as at the time of writing this question, I still am unclear what the answer is to it. I ask again if clarification can be given on this area, as it is still proving difficult to prompt responses to queries in relation to resident grant applications. I would like to acknowledge that this is not a criticism. I know how challenging their task has been with the wide range of different grant schemes and delay in specific guidance following the announcement of the schemes by government. However, it is difficult to provide responses to residents on their queries in a timely manner. Would the council leader confirm what additional support this team is receiving and how the process of getting answers to queries could be accelerated? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Leader?
Thank you, Councillor Harris. You're giving the last question and I'm giving the last answer. So that's got to go down in history. So thank you for your question. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to respond. The increase in workload caused by the COVID crisis has been covered by many teams. The Revenues and Benefits team have been supported by members of staff from accountancy, audit, and customer services. There has been additional investment in software to aid the application process and hardware to assist working from home. Flexible working arrangements are in place, as well as the offer of overtime. To be fair, it is inevitable with a huge peak in workload that there will be delays in responses. The teams are working tirelessly to get through them as quickly as possible, and I commend our staff for doing such a great job over this terrible pandemic period. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Orger. Is there a follow-up question? Councillor Harris?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah. I have a number of residents who've made inquiries or questions in regards to their council tax bills, and they're receiving an automated response, which is that it will take 20 days or maybe longer to respond to them, depending on how busy the team are. Again, I appreciate how busy the team are, but I'd like to know whether the council leader thinks that's acceptable to tell residents that it's 20 days and or more to respond to queries on council tax bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Leader?
Yeah, I think it's acceptable in this most extraordinary time to have patience and tolerance with our staff who are working under extreme pressure. And I'm sure that he would agree with me. We do not want to add to this crisis by burdening staff, by giving them burnout, and then end up with a higher sickness rate. And I believe that the public have been incredibly tolerant and supportive of our public services and our staff, and I am very proud of them, and I'm sure the districts are too. We are doing our best. In fact, we are doing our very best, and it's about time we as politicians gathered around our staff and supported them instead of veiled criticism. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Orger. We now move on to a motion under Council Procedure Rule 12. I'll ask Councillor Orger and Councillor Brown to propose and second. Councillor Orger.
Yeah, thank you. Just a point of fact, I know that our colleague Councillor Jonathan Harris has put in an amendment to this. Do we take that first, or do I present my?
Take the motion, then we can take the amendment from Jonathan. Thank you.
Okay. The motion is simply. Do you want me to read it out, Councillor Chair, or just? Are
you happy as read? Or you can read it out if you wish to. It's entirely up to you.
Okay. Well, everyone has read it. It's simply to recognise the significant contribution of our chairman, our leader, Chris Miller, and specifically named also is Ian Vinson. It is extraordinary in this time to have two individuals that I believe, first of all, on the political sense, to be the leader of a group, a political group for 20 years requires a certain amount of talent and ability. And it's extraordinary that you could even survive in one party, let alone then become leader of a political movement for so long, that has done so much for the people of Daventry districts. And I think that does deserve recognition. And not only is he incredibly popular and trusted amongst his Conservative colleagues, there is a universal respect for him from opposition, from the people that have worked with him, from officers alike. And I think it deserves recognition. And as for Ian Vincent, as a professional, well, I've only worked with him closely for nearly a year and a half now, and he is a consummate professional. He's incredibly patient, he's incredibly visionary, incredibly sure, and he knows his business, and has been an incredible help to me in ensuring we have steered both the vision and the policies of this Daventry district forward. And even this last month, it's probably we've been as busy as ever, dealing with some of the concerns Councillor Harris talked about people not being satisfied with our service, about working with them, explaining why things haven't been done or why things weren't done in a way they like, because ultimately Mr. Vincent really cares about the people he serves, and that is reflected in the way he has done his work. But there's obviously lots of people we could name, and I think that Councillor Harris is going to, where I have failed to broaden the recognition, because there are many, many people, and probably there should be lots of named people here, but that isn't practical. But I think he came up with quite a good way of making sure that all those that have had this longevity of service are recognised by this motion. So I put the motion to you and asked if the council will pass it.
Thank you, Councillor Auger. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm extremely happy to second this motion, and I anticipate that we'll be more than happy to accept Councillor Harris's amendment that he's put forward in writing already. There are two individuals who I wanted to pay particular tribute to, because when I was born in January of 1985, a certain Councillor John Shepherd had already been a member of this district council for several months. And I think to have that degree of longevity in public service, and many of us here tonight will hope that that history of public service continues after May of this year. But to have that history of public service is quite remarkable, and I would pay tribute to him. Furthermore, there's I would just like to recognise that being a non-administration councillor in an authority where there has often been a very strong majority in the administration cannot always be the easiest of tasks. And therefore, I'd just like to acknowledge the contribution over the years of the longest standing non-Conservative councillor, who's of course Catherine Lomax. When you, Chairman, first introduced me to life at this district council, you mentioned Councillor Lomax to me, and I think you said words along the lines of, well, we're never sad to see Councillor Lomax re-elected because we hold her in such high esteem. And I think that goes for many people throughout her ward. Again, I admire her public service, which I know has extended over many, many years. And I would just like to pay particular tribute to the staff of this council, who of course we can't name every single one of. There have been no doubt thousands of staff who have come through the doors of Daventry District Council in the 47 years of our existence, and whether their work has been in keeping Lodge Road tidy, or in dealing with the waste and recycling collections, or in dealing with our Part 2 local plan, or whatever it may be, they have made a difference to the residents of this district. And I'm reminded of the words of one of my colleagues on the West Northamptonshire Shadow Authority, who once said that nothing that members want to happen does happen without an officer first lifting a finger. So I'd like to pay tribute to all those officers who have contributed over the years, and I thank them for their service.
Thanks much indeed, Councillor Brown. I move now to Councillor Jonathan Harris. You want to make an amendment, Jonathan?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a very simple and hopefully straightforward amendment, and it is effectively just changing the point which refers to you, Chair. It still refers to you, but instead I suggest that it reads as the significant contribution of its chairman and leader for over 20 years, Chris Miller, along with his colleagues, many of whom have also served not just the council, but their communities for a significant amount of time. This council wishes him and all those who are retiring from public life the very best for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. That sounds very reasonable to me. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Lomax, that's very kind. Do you want to second it, Councillor Ritchie? Can't hear you, Ken.
Muted, Chairman.
Muted again.
Sorry, this time it's just my fault and not my technologies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to second, and I had indicated that to Councillor Harris because I felt that the idea of widening this motion was actually quite important. There are very many people who obviously have done things either with or through or attached to Daventry District Council over many years. And whether they have served well or just served, I feel they should be entitled to some form of thanks, and we should recognise that. I accept that I am, by comparison with Councillor Miller, I am a beginner as far as this council goes. But I think it's right that his name is actually there and not just left to be as one of the many. In the years that I've been on this council, for most of the time, Councillor Miller has been the dominant personality. Now, of course, we have disagreed on many occasions, and I'm quite relieved that I had a technical fault earlier on in this meeting, and Councillor Miller would not have heard what I was telling him when he dealt, I felt, disgracefully with a point of order that was raised by my colleague, Councillor Dabbs. But that has happened. There are many other disappointments I've had. But I have had a respect for Councillor Miller's ability. I have always admired his oratory. He has always had an ability, quite lacking in Councillor James, to talk nonsense very quickly. I do feel that, you know, that yes, we should be grateful for people who give service, but let's not make sure that that simply says that we think that what has happened, everything that happened should have happened. I hope that Councillor Miller will be able to look back, he will have a long retirement, and be able to reflect on many of the good things that happened in Daventry under his leadership. Daventry avoided spending millions on building a canal arm while he was leader. We avoid becoming a sort of test site for transport pods. We saved our ambulance station, all under his leadership. I hope that he will now be able to have that bit of relaxation with time to himself, time to go and enjoy some of our wonderful countryside, and time to enjoy our canals where canals ought to be. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councillor Rich. I'll come back on a couple of those points in a minute, if I may. Councillor Harris.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't know whether this is the right moment, but I also would like to say a few words about my colleague and friend, Catherine Lomax, if I may.
You may, that's fine, yeah.
Catherine has served her community since 1998 as District Councillor, earning quite rightly a formidable reputation for listening, caring, and getting things done. During this time, she's seen many changes on the political landscape. We can save the debate for another day as to whether these are good or bad. But Catherine has embodied and demonstrated in all that she has done the 7 no-limits of public life: selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. She has never been afraid to support what she believes to be right, and equally unafraid to call things out when she believes things are unfair or unjust. I want to talk a little bit about leadership, if I may. The mistake is often made that leadership is about power, authority, and position. This is, of course, entirely unfounded. Leadership comes from within, what you believe in, what you value, how you treat others. In my day job, I work with leaders of all shapes and sizes, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent. What the good leaders do have in common is a clear sense of purpose driven by their values. As leadership writer Simon Sinek puts it, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Catherine has not had a chance to lead the council, which is in my view a great shame, but she has certainly led from the front with a strong why. She has spent her entire career, not just the time as a councillor, being alert to injustice in society. To coin a phrase thrown out at a recent West Northants meeting, and I think at the time intended as an insult to be fair, a woke warrior, if you will. Well, Catherine is one of the original woke warriors and she's proud of it, and we're very proud of her. It's been a very short time that she and I have had the chance to work alongside together at this council. However, she's now honorary president of our local Lib Dem group, and she will be vice president of the Northamptonshire Acre, who she's worked with for some time. So it's really a new chapter for her rather than anything else. I wish Catherine and her husband Kit well in their new chapter and thank her for her service and her support. My message to all those present, especially those seeking election to the new West Northamptonshire Council, and to coin a social media phrase, would be #BeMoreCatherine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I actually would actually support those comments actually about Catherine. I've known Catherine since '98 when I first became a councillor. I've always had the highest regard for her and the way she conducts herself. Outside the politics, it doesn't matter. It's about getting things done locally for people. And I always found Catherine will support you where she wants to, thinks it's right, and also oppose where she thinks we're not right. And I've always respected that viewpoint. So thank you for those comments. Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to remind everyone that you choose Catherine, or you ask Catherine to be our chairman, which is a very unusual step for a Conservative administration. As a chairman role is a non-political role, and we choose because we knew how well Catherine Lomax will do that job of a chairman, and you ask her to serve us as our chairman, and I was very pleased when she became our chairman. So sometimes we do not do politics, we do what is right, and you choose to do it right for Councillor Lomax. Thank you, Chairman, indeed.
Thank you, Steve. And also, we actually put Councillor Angela Campling in as chairman many years ago, and John Russell, independent. So we do actually select people on their ability and their, their rightness for the job. So I support those comments, Councillor Irving Swift. It is embarrassing for me. I only saw this motion when it was put on the agenda. I didn't see it beforehand. So I've always been very modest in my how I see myself, which is probably just as well actually. And because I'm not one of those people who go shouting from the rooftops. What I am passionate about is doing our best for the public we represent. And I always accept in politics that sometimes, like Councillor Ritchie mentioned, we don't always agree. But I think Councillor Ritchie means well, and I think Councillor Harris does, and I think everyone means well in their own right. But we had the responsibility of running the council. We had the administration. When I first came on this council in 1998, I was in opposition for a year. And that's quite a good way of doing it, actually. When you're in opposition, you then see how things work. You take a year to get into the council anyway. But when you're in opposition, you can then start thinking about what you would do differently if you're in the administration. And the first year we got back into power in 1999, we won by 2 seats. And one of those seats was won by 5 votes and won by 3 votes. That's how close the council was in those days. So I'm just saying, so we came from that very close council and we built up a majority over the next 3 or 4 years thereafter. All I want to say to people tonight, thank you very much indeed. I didn't mention all the people I could have mentioned when I first spoke on this earlier, but all the Conservative group have made it very easy for me as leader. I've been surrounded by some very good committee people. I will mention Joe Guilford, Wayne Howard, Colin Morgan, Alan Chandler, because those people have been around a long time and done an excellent job. There's many more I can mention. I don't want to upset everyone by not mentioning people, but the truth here is a leader can only lead the team he's got. I had a strong team, so it made my job easier. And there's also, I'm sure the opposition would recognise that. And we all have members who can challenge and make it more challenging. But I have been fortunate in that respect. And as I said before, we had a great team of officers, senior officers and a great team of staff at Daventry District. And I think it's a shame this council's disappearing after 47 years through no fault of its own, but we are where we are. And I'm sure the council is going on to be unitary to the West Northamptonshire area, will do their very best to represent the public in the way they have done in the past and make that council a success moving forward. That's all I need to say. Thank you much indeed to everyone for that. So we now move to the motion, which I guess we say, do we set the amended motion? I just want to say, yes, amended motion. And so are we happy to accept that? Agree the amended motion.
Agreed.
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 No show. Have we got the hands working tonight, Tony?
Chairman, we can go to a poll if you like, or if you're happy to do it by agreement and check.
How to do it by general agreement, or do a poll? Do a poll. We do it by poll, so we do it by poll.
You have 20 seconds, councillors.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. D. We have 93% for, 7% abstain, none against. So that motion is carried, and I thank you again for that very kind motion. We now move on to a second motion under Council Procedure Rule 12. I'm going to ask Adam Brown and Joe Guildford to present the motion. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. And I thought it was important that before we as a district council are dissolved, that we pay particular tribute to the people across our district who have gone above and beyond in dealing with the sometimes horrendous situations that have confronted them during this pandemic. And I think particularly of the community groups, some of whom sprang up almost out of nothing during that first lockdown, when there were fears around not being able to access medicines or basic essentials from the supermarkets. And yet, via the wonders of technology, people clubbed together as communities. They looked after their neighbours. They looked after the vulnerable in their villages and in their town, and they made sure that nobody who they were aware of was wanting for what they needed in their life. And sometimes we hear an awful lot about the negative side of social media, but actually I think that this pandemic has shown just what a positive influence social media can be in knitting together previously unknown parts of our communities, getting to know what parts of our communities need that little bit more attention. And via these community groups, we've seen people do just that. And I simply wanted, Mr. Chairman, to pay due tribute to everyone who has put up their hand and offered to serve in a capacity very different from our own, without very much public recognition at all, with no pay of any kind. They did so purely out of the goodness of their hearts, and they did so for the good of their fellow man. And I think that needs to be applauded from the rooftops. And it is truly humbling to see some of the lengths that people have gone to support their neighbours. Of course, the motion also refers to the key workers in our communities, but I am going to leave Councillor Guildford as an NHS professional to talk more about that, as it is very much her area of expertise. But like everyone in this country of ours, I am amazingly grateful to the staff of the NHS and the social care professionals who have carried on regardless throughout this pandemic, putting their safety to one side in order to help others. So I'm happy to, at this stage, Mr. Chairman, to hand over to Councillor Guildford to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Brown. I will hand over to our NHS health expert, Councillor Guildford.
Right, can you hear me now? It wouldn't let me.
I can hear you now, yes, we can hear you, Joe. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for allowing me to second this motion. As you all know, my day job is in the NHS, and we have had a testing time, but that testing time has been made easier by the voluntary groups who've come together with the NHS, and we have had that true great British spirit of working together. The COVID vaccination centres that we're running at the moment to give you all your injections, again, it's volunteers that are coming in and helping us as well. So yes, we've all had a very hard time, but we've come together, and together we're managing to address the COVID situation. So thank you very much to everybody.
And can you pass our thanks on to your colleagues, Joe?
Will do.
For all they're doing. Thank you much indeed for that. You're seconding the motion. Councillor Olga.
Thank you, Chair. I think sometimes when we are involved in local politics, especially in the chamber, we tend to, I was looking at all the questions, we tend to actually forget who actually we are serving. We're not serving our own self-interest or our political ideology. We're actually serving the people, and we have really great activists and community groups and individuals that live in our districts. I think we are blessed to live in such an area. And, you know, I'm always grateful for when I've gone out and met with parishes and met with individuals with constituency cases, how good our people are. And I just want to support this motion in thanking the people of Daventry, all of them, unsung heroes, many of them, for what they do and make this district great. And I hope that they get the elected representatives they deserve to continually support and work for them, because you know what, frankly, they deserve it.
Thank you, Councillor Olga. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm, of course, 100% behind the sentiments of this motion. I just like to almost ask a question as to what happens with it. I remember in the past putting forward a motion which was disallowed because it was only an expression of what the council thought, and it didn't actually call for any action or for the council to do anything differently. Can this motion perhaps be amended to put in a little bit of action? We can recognise people, even if it's only say that this council's the last act agrees that it will write to the appropriate government minister to protest that nurses are only getting a 1% pay increase. Can we say as an action that yes, that we're going to do something more practical to support the position of people who work in care homes after the magnificent job that they've been doing over the past year? I just feel that, you know, if we only say we recognise it, this is just like we've gone out and we've clapped in the streets, but we haven't actually done anything. Can we not have, I don't have a proposal myself, but I don't know if the movers of the motion can think of something that they feel that the council should do so that recognition is more than just words.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think we'd all agree with the sentiment behind this. I mean, and I think nearly everybody in one way or the other has helped somebody one way or another, even if they've been housebound, even to the point that they're making a phone call and keeping in contact with people, you know, so it has brought the community together. But I had a similar thought to Councillor Ritchie, actually, because I read this and I thought, you know, it's really, really lovely. And, you know, and yeah, we all, you know, are thankful to so many. But what actually are we going to do with it? Because generally the motion, it's more of like a statement. To me, it was a statement. It was a statement of thanks more than a motion. Because I thought, well, what are we actually going to do with it now? So, you know, how are we going to recognise these people apart from if they, you know, watch it on YouTube? How are they going to know that?
Thank you, Councillor Randall. I'll let the proposer come back on this in a minute. Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, I completely echo and follow the same sentiments. We had a magnificent response over in my ward with volunteers, particularly within Brixworth itself. I'm wondering whether the action might be something related to the amplification of the Good Neighbours scheme and, of course, continuation of the funding grant that currently sits there. I'm not sure exactly whether that is already a provision within the budget for next year for West Northamptonshire. Clearly, that's a decision for West Northamptonshire, not for this council. But I'm wondering if there could be something alluding to either supporting or lobbying for, or something along those lines in regards to the continuation of the Good Neighbour scheme. What we need to do is to convert those amazing volunteers that came forward and try and establish permanent volunteer schemes like Good Neighbours. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks to you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Micklewright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a very worthy motion, and I agree entirely with the sentiment of it. All of the key workers, and we always mention the NHS, and quite rightly so, but all of the key workers going beyond the NHS need undying gratitude for everything that they've done over the course of the last year. And I think anything that marks that and shows it tangibly is to be welcomed. So I support this and will vote in favour of it. I would also support and would like to have voted in favour of the previous motion about yourself, Mr. Chairman, and the officers. But for some reason, the voting window didn't come up on my screen, and I think I'm showing as an abstention rather than in favour. If that could be corrected, I would appreciate it.
Well, thank you for that clarification, Councillor Micklewright, and your comments are well appreciated. Thank you. I have to say, I also support you fully on what you're saying beyond the NHS. We have the police, we have other public bodies who've done an enormous amount in COVID, put their lives on the line. And I think you're right about this recognition of all public service workers who've gone out there on the line in the face of this pandemic. Councillor Brown, do you want to come back on any points that have been raised, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. And there were some very, very valid points raised during the debate. And I just say, by way of explanation, my motion was intended as a almost as another vote of thanks, in recognition of the fact that this council sadly will cease to exist come the end of the month. Therefore, a change of policy at DDC wasn't a realistic proposal. And as some members will recall, I'm not a fan of asking local authorities to write to central government to change national policy. It's not the way that I do things. Although I would fully support the calls for fair pay for all public sector workers and for all key workers across the country. I think that's an admirable political objective, but it wasn't the intent behind the motion. I've been brought up to believe that saying thank you is very important, and this motion was intended to say thank you to those who deserve our thanks, and that is why it's written as it was. So I commend the motion to Council, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Can we move to the vote now, please, Tony? Or is it Jebley? Or Marina?
Marina.
Marina. Sorry, I got there in the end, Marina. Sorry.
You have 20 seconds, councillors.
Thank you. Thank you. We have 97% in favour and 1 abstention, 3% abstention. So that's carried. Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to the reports of committees. And as you will see on the papers there, this is purely for information purposes. So that's taken as read. We move on to item 9 now, recommendation of committees. And the first one is, if you look at your papers on page, I'm not sure what the page number is, on mine it's 1 out of 6, but it's a Badby Conservation Area designation. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. This is the first of 6 conservation areas that we're looking at this evening, and I thought it might save a bit of time later, Chairman, if I make some general comments about the consultation process. Has been,
it's all of them,
which has been affected by the pandemic. It's not been possible to carry out as much of the interactive consultation as we would have liked. So we've extended the consultation by carrying out further online consultations. We've held a number of online meetings. People have attended those and people have looked at the recordings of them afterwards. And people have responded to the consultation in the usual manner. So I think we're happy that there has been appropriate consultation. And I would like to take this opportunity, Chairman, to thank and commend the work done by the staff concerned who have worked very hard at these consultations and the preparation of the conservation area appraisal and management plans that we're about to consider. And I would like a record made of my thanks.
I'm sure that's been noted, Councillor Chancellor. Thank you.
Thank you. So we move to consider the Badby Conservation Area designation, appraisal and management plan. During the consultation, which was carried out as I indicated, we received 4 responses. 8 amendments have been made to the boundary for the conservation area, which included extensions and small reductions. This was a revision or review, and no changes were proposed to be made as a result of the responses received. It's also worth pointing out, and I hope I don't have to do this every time, that the recommendations to council include the Article 4 directions. I just wanted to point out that Article 4 directions are a way of controlling, not stopping, certain aspects of development within a conservation area in order that the characteristics of the conservation area should be preserved. They do not apply to all properties, and there will, of course, be further consultation on the specific Article 4 directions in the Badby Conservation Area as recommended. So all I ask for this evening, Chairman, is support from Council that the proposed conservation area boundary be designated, that the proposed changes to the conservation area appraisal and management plan in response to representations be approved, that further minor editorial changes be made in order to reflect the fact that it will be in its final adopted form, and that therefore the conservation area appraisal and management plan for Badby be accepted as a supplementary planning document, that the local list entries for Badby set out in Appendix D of the papers originally be agreed, and that Article 4 directions for Badby, in accordance with the proposals in the conservation area appraisal and management plan, be made subject to further consultation. That's what I'm asking for support from Council this evening, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve, Councillor Charlton. And those recommendations apply to the next 3 ones, 3 conservation area designations, which you're going to come on to. So hopefully members can remember that, can read it anyway, rather than having to read it all out. But it's very helpful you've done it the first time, Councillor Chancellor. Can I have a seconder for this one, please?
Could I second it as ward member?
You may, Councillor Guildford, yeah. Any comments or just second it? That's fine.
Just second it.
Are there anyone wants to speak on this? If not, can we move to a vote, please?
You have 20 seconds, councillors.
Thank you. Time up. 29 in favour, none against, 1 abstention. So that's carried. Thank you much indeed. Can we now move on to your next one, Councillor Chancellor, which is the Cretan Conservation Area Designation Appraisal and Management Plan?
Yes, Chairman. Not much to add to what you know already. We did get responses from the Parish Council and from Anglian Water and from 3 individuals. 2 requests have been made to alter the boundary, and the Parish Council disagreed that a row of buildings in Welford Road should be included, but following the consultation process, no changes were proposed. I can also add, Chairman, that since the publication of this agenda, we've received contact from a resident of the area questioning why the inclusion of some area of open countryside within the conservation area, and that has been, in my view, very satisfactorily dealt with by the officers concerned. So again, there will be Article 4 directions applied to certain areas. Perhaps I should also explain that in the proposal we mentioned the local list, and that is a list of properties which are thought to be of special interest but not actually listed by Historic England. So it's the same recommendation as before, Chairman, for Cretan, and thank you for suggesting that I needn't read it all out again.
Thanks indeed, Councillor Charter. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Parker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very happy to second it, but I would like to see the following going forward. When parish and residents, and that's in the consultation process I'm talking about, provide comments and officers give their views on either to accept or reject the comments, the completed version should be forwarded to all people who have responded prior to the strategy meeting, which then enables local members to raise any issues where there is a difference of opinion or where clarity is sought. I understand this needs to go forward to the new unitary because obviously we're not going to be able to do anything in the next 10 days. But I also just like to thank the officers for the work they've done on this. So many thanks to them as well. Thank you, Chair.
Very much indeed, Councillor Parker. I'm sure you'll endorse those views as well. Okay, so are we ready to vote on this one, please?
.20 seconds, councillors.
Okay, thank you indeed. That's 100% for, 28 for, none against, no abstentions. So that is carried, Councillor Chandler. We move on to your third one now, the Long Butley Conservation Area Designation, Appraisal and Management Plan.
Thank you, Chairman. Some people might be surprised to learn that Long Butley has not been a conservation area until this review had taken place. It was very successful. Obviously raised quite a lot of interest in the consultation period. A total of 13 responses were received, and many of these were in support of the proposal. And there had been requests for various alterations, minor alterations. As a result, another 12 heritage assets have been added to the local list. And of course, Article 4 directions will be produced to control development and maintain the integrity of the conservation area, as you might expect. Nothing more to add, Chairman. I recommend, as before, that we go ahead with this as a new conservation area in what is still Daventry District.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Charter. Do you have a seconder, please?
I was expecting, of course, Chairman, that Councillor Osborne was going to second this, but he's unable to.
Councillor Lonley is not present, so I second it as a ward member. Thank you. So I'll second that. I was hoping Councillor Lonley might be here, but he's not on the list at the moment. So that's proposed and seconded. Are there any comments? Can you move to the vote, please?
.20 seconds, councillors.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you. That's time up. 34, none against, no abstentions. So that one's carried NEMCOM. Thank you much indeed. We move on to your next one, Councillor Chandler, Preston Capes Conservation Area Destination Appraisal and Management Plan.
Thank you again, Chairman. Again, the consultation was carried out as before. We received responses from Parish Council, Anglian Water, and 4 individuals, and they were largely supportive. A request had been made to remove one property from the local list, as it is already included within the curtilage of a listed building. This was correct, and therefore that adjustment has been made. I think that's all I need to say, Chairman. It's much as before. We wish to designate the proposed conservation area boundary and all the other things that are in that long list of recommendations.
Thank you much indeed, Councillor Chancellor. Do we have a seconder?
As ward member, can I second that, please, Chris?
Councillor Guildford to second. Any comments or questions? If not, can we please move to the vote, please?
Twenty seconds, councillors.
Thank you. Thank you. That's again 100% in favour, 29 for, none against, no abstentions. So that's approved. Thank you much indeed. I'm going to make a slight alteration now to the agenda. I want to do, as you're on a run, Councillor Charter, I thought you might as well do the next two conservation areas, Clipston and Great Brington, and come back to the funding for the affordable housing scheme in West Haddon and Norton. So can I ask you to cover now Clipston Conservation Area, appraisal and management plan?
Thank you, Chairman. A good idea. We did manage to hold an exhibition in March just before lockdown, but then, of course, the consultation had to be done virtually, online and by email. We had 6 people on an online meeting and 20 people viewed it afterwards. The responses to the consultation were helpful and generally supportive. There have been requests to change the boundary, but otherwise, as before, Chairman, I recommend to Council that we go ahead and adopt this conservation area appraisal and management plan, designate the boundary, and proceed with the consultation on Article 4 directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chancellor. Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, it's in my ward, and I would have loved that Councillor Chandler. That is also the first time that Clipston was considered for a conservation area. And for those who know me and how proud I am of my ward, it is the Naseby and Clipston. One was a Roundhead and the other was Cavalier. And we have Prince Rupert. So when you go to Clipston, if one day you have the chance, it's the most wonderful village. And there is a school, and that is one of our oldest schools, still acting as a school in Clipston, built in 1667. And maybe if you do not know what to do with the Battle of Naseby, beautiful drawing or painting, which is in the office, so school children will be very pleased to see the Battle of Naseby was just in their background on their school wall, and a lot of people could see it. So that is a plea, but it's a wonderful point for Clipston, and I wish that people, when they go, could go to all the beautiful building, especially the church, which is great, least one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Irving Swift. Are there any other comments or questions? If not, can we please move to the vote, please?
Twenty seconds, councillors.
Thank you much indeed. Again, 100% for. That's 29 votes for, none against, no abstentions. So that one is carried. Thank you much indeed. And we move on to your last one, Councillor Chandler, Great Brington Conservation Area Destination Appraisal and Management Plan.
Thank you, Chairman. And can I say at this point that it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be responsible in some way for these conservation area designations. And I hope that such a process will continue in the future in the new authority. I hope also that all of the information associated with these conservation areas will be made available via the website of the new authority. Okay, so we carried out a consultation for the Great Brington Conservation Area, and that included an online public meeting, and we had 6 responses which were largely supportive, and some properties were suggested for inclusion in the local list, and 12 heritage assets were added as a result of the consultation. All this shows you, you see, that consultation does work. The proposal, therefore, Chairman, is as before. I won't read the long list, but I'm sure that members are familiar with it now, and there will be further opportunity for consultation regarding the Article 4 directions in the fullness of time, Chairman. Thank you very much.
That's very, very kind, Councillor Chandler. Do we have a seconder, please?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman, as local member.
Councillor McElroy, yeah. Anything you want to say, anything, Councillor?
No, except that I completely endorse everything Councillor Irving Swift said about Clipston, and it equally applies to Great Brington.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. D. That's very, very efficient. Thank you, Councillor McElroy. Can we now move to the vote, please?
Twenty seconds, councillors.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, 100% in favour, 28 for, none against, no abstentions. That is approved, carried. Thank you. Now we move back to the affordable housing item, which I think Councillor David Smith is going to lead on.
No, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Cribbett, my apologies. Councillor Cribbett, my apologies, Daniel.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair. This is, I'll be brief. We've got the recommendation before us here that we're proposing to draw down on £41,950 in respect of Section 106 monies that the council holds for an affordable housing scheme at Crick Road in West Haddon. The proposal is for 6 one-bedroom bungalows, which is put forward. The application that's coming to committee hopefully fairly soon. There was a affordable housing or housing needs survey done in the village, and that threw up the need for further 6 one-bedroom bungalows within the village of West Haddon. So this proposal is that we draw down on that money to help that scheme come to fruition. The second part of the proposal is that we extend the time frame for the proposal that we had, well, the thing that came through full council in October 2020. We're extending the time frame to agree to spend the funding that we granted at that point from 18 months to 30 months to allow the scheme to carry on. This scheme has been subject to a few delays because of COVID, and this extension will allow that scheme to actually come to fruition. So I put this forward to the council.
Thanks to you, Councillor Cribbett. And Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to fully support and second this, and I think Councillor Cribbett said everything needs to be said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deed. Anyone else want to speak on this one? Please show your hand. Now, if not, then we move to the vote, please.
Twenty seconds, councillors.
Thank you. So again, that's 100% in favour, 28 for, none against, no abstentions. So that one's approved. Thank you much indeed. So that concludes our recommendations to committees. So I'm now going to go back to the main agenda now, and I think it's the Town Centre Vision, remember rightly. Just going on there now. This is going to be Councillor James.
Yeah. I wish to make a point of order.
You may, yes.
I'm just concerned about the structure of our agenda here. The Scrutiny Committee has considered issues relevant to this item. I would have liked the recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee to be considered. The agenda says that it's recommended that they should be noted. But what's the point in noting them after the main discussion has actually taken place? Surely these things should happen beforehand. We are, after all, here in the final meeting of this council, partly because, as Max Caller pointed out, the County Council did not have a strong scrutiny function that was actually effective. If we have got a scrutiny committee, are we not at least going to take note of what the scrutiny committee had to say before entering into our discussion?
Have you spoken to anyone about this, Councillor Richard, before tonight? Because I wasn't aware of this viewpoint. That's all I'm asking. I'm the chairman of the meeting tonight. Have you mentioned it to the portfolio holder? Have you mentioned it to an officer?
No, I'm saying that you will find that the next item in the agenda is a position statement from the Scrutiny and Improvement Committee. In it, you will find the recommendation, the paper that was approved, NEMCON at the Scrutiny and Improvement Committee. You'll find that at page 221.
Right, I'm just going to that committee report now. So all the scrutiny committee reports, it's just reports are noted, as you said. So presumably members have read this. I'm happy to take that first. Councillor Wesley, you're the chair of Scrutiny and Improvement. Do you want to have a comment on this? Councillor Wesley?
Sorry, Chair, I couldn't unmute myself. Couldn't click
That's
on
okay.
the button.
I know, sir.
Yeah, I mean, this was these were intended as items to go to be put on the record, to go forward, to be understood by the new authority,
right?
As it takes effect. As I understand, obviously, you know, this council's in no real position to take any additional actions on that.
That's true.
Obviously, Councillor Ritchie is quite at liberty to raise the points that come out of those reports in the debate that ensues now, I believe. So there is opportunity in there, and that's how I would see it. Thank you, Chair.
Very helpful, Councillor Wesley. So you heard that, Councillor Ritchie. I'm happy with that as chairman. So if you want to bring any points out in the debate we're about to have now on the adoption of the Daventry Town Centre vision, I'd be grateful if you could do that during the debate.
Can I suggest, Chair, then that this council formally at this stage notes the recommendations of the Scrutiny Committee?
I'm happy for that to happen. Councillor, can we vote on that, please? Are you happy to note the recommendations of the committee on the 3 appendices on the report, please? Can you move in one vote, please, Marina? Or do note in the reports? I just want to show hands. Everyone's happy to do that. Thank you, Mr. D. There's 29 in favour, none against, no abstentions. So council's happy to know all 3 appendices in that report. And thank you, Councillor Wesley, for your scrutiny improvements input and into those pieces of work. Can we move now to the adoption of the Daventry Town Centre Vision 2035? Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. It hardly seems possible that it's been 20 months, a year and 8 months, since I came before the council to report that the existing town centre vision was coming to an end, and that we should be looking at preparing a new vision for Daventry Town Centre, particularly in view of the fact that our own council is likely to come to an end, and matters would be then taken over by West Northamptonshire Unitary Authority. And we thought it would be as well to have something of a vision for Daventry so that it could be the focus for the new Unitary Authority when it comes into being, particularly because both Northampton and South Northamptonshire have very ambitious legacy projects which will require a lot of attention, as well as the new Unitary Authority having much greater priorities in other areas of administration, other matters. So since then, during those 20 months, we've worked closely, almost like in a partnership with Daventry Town Council. We've employed external specialist planning consultants to come up with proposals to make the town centre a much more cohesive, much more attractive centre, where people will do something perhaps a little bit more than just come in, as we found out through analysis of the type of shopper, ages, the regularity which they shop within the centre, and it's predominantly for the weekly shop. Some do it once a week, some do it 2 or 3 times a week. So all of that has been analysed, and we've had 2 consultations. We've had webinars, we've had workshops, we produce leaflets with notices. You'll see all of that we've done to communicate to the public. It's on page 114 of your report. For example, the website received 4,741 page views from 1,764 users. That type of information, which I won't go into further. The plan was finally finalised, and after consultation comments and views were taken into account. And I'm pleased to say that it went before Daventry Town Council earlier this week, where it was approved and adopted by them. The next stage is for Daventry District Council to approve and adopt it, and then it will be forwarded to West Northamptonshire Council for adoption in due course. The proposals in the vision are about 14 proposals. These affect things like the public realms, certain sites within Daventry. It is a living document. Things will evolve over the next 15 years. Perhaps some things will evolve that we haven't thought of at this stage, or perhaps we may have to row back on things. There will be a need, of course, for individual consultations with various bodies and the people throughout the life of this document. There will need to be various permissions and consents for lots of the things that are suggested in here. But the hope is, of course, that we shall end up in 15 years' time with a much more cohesive town centre, one that's fit for the latter part, particularly of the 21st century, in terms of modes of transport, in terms of access to the town centre, cycling, footways, places for people to sit and enjoy, and let's declutter the town of some of the clutter that's in there at the moment by way of street furniture. So finally then, I'd like to put it to you that first, that the Daventry Town Centre Vision 2035 that's set out in Appendix B be adopted, that it be recommended to West Northamptonshire Council that it adopts the Town Centre Vision 2035 and that it works in partnership with Daventry Town Council to implement it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor James. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'd like to second this, please.
Okay, Councillor Mattin, do you want to say anything?
No, I think Councillor James said everything that needs to be said. It's a great piece of work, and it's a great necessary thing that we have a vision for the future that we take into the new unitary authority. Thank you.
Thank you much indeed, Councillor Mattin. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you for letting me speak, Chair. Just want to say I pretty much agree with everything that Councillor James says, and I think this is a real aspirational document for the people of Daventry going forward. Without the district council, with the town council as the flag bearer for this piece of work, and I truly hope that everyone that's elected or re-elected come May actually fights tooth and nail to get the proposals in this document put into place over the coming years. May not in the exact form as they're presented here, but in at least a form. It gives the people of Daventry something to hope for, and it gives the town. It does give the town what it says here, a genuine vision to take it forward and be be a really good place to live. And I thank you for everyone that's been involved in putting it together, everyone that's participated in the consultation, be it online or offline, at workshops and everything else. And I think it's a good piece of work with some really fine ideas on it that people can genuinely get excited about. Even if they're excited about it and they don't want them, like let's have the debate going forward into the future, and let's get some, at least part of this done. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Wesley. Councillor Randall.
Yes, sorry, Chair. I was a bit confused when I've been reading this report, because I look at the proposals in the District Council short proposals, and then when you look into the documents, some of them don't seem to match up. So I wondered if you could, or if you would be able to tell me which ones I'd actually be voting for. So there is one on our District Council papers on 116, halfway down, it's Foundry Walk, and it's explore options to remove or replace the roof. And yet when I look onto the papers, it actually says Foundry Walk, remove the roof structure. So are we exploring options to remove or replace, or is it just going to be remove? And there's quite a few like that, actually. And I abstained on this as a town councillor, because I wanted to gather a few more views from the public. We went out to consultation twice. We've asked the public, and the public haven't been fed any of this feedback. So they still haven't had actually a chance to see what the final proposals are. I'm really disappointed that there wasn't a public Zoom meeting where they could have viewed the proposals and maybe had a bit more input. You're probably aware that there is an outdoor pool committee that have been gathering signatures, because, you know, as we know, the outdoor pool is still spoken about every week. Nobody fails to mention the outdoor pool. It is greatly missed. And when I saw the proposals that we could have a new leisure centre, I thought that would be absolutely fantastic for the town. I know there are other places in the country, Horsham, they've got an amazing leisure centre, and you swim through shutters into an outdoor pool. It is absolutely amazing, and I'm thinking we could have something, you know, like that in Daventry, something that the town is absolutely crying out for. Now, we've had visions in the past, and I think in our last vision, I don't know how many proposals there were, but I was thinking back on actually what that achieved. And from my recollection of what it achieved was all the Abbey shops were built. The library was knocked down. The library, we didn't get a new library build, but we got it put inside a building. And that's all that I can recall that we achieved. Now, if we're going to have a vision, I want that vision to be really achievable. I want it to be absolutely something amazing for this town that will bring people into the town and really help boost the economy. So if we're going to focus on something, why don't, I'd much rather us pick on 2 or 3 things that we could really, really, drive after and achieve. So if it was going to be, a new play park in the Rec, and, a new leisure centre with slides and all sorts of things, absolutely. But in the recommendation in this booklet for the leisure centre, all it says is explore options.
4 minutes,
Now,
Chair.
Explore options.
1 minute. 1 minute.
People are talking about having a new leisure centre, and it's just explore options. So, I'm fearful that out of this, we'll only get what the town council will maybe fund out their precept.
Well, a lot of these things the town council probably would have done ever without this vision, because a lot of things is just, you know, revamping street furniture and things like that. So I would have really liked to have just gone after just two things: leisure centre and the park within the rec. Forget about the one-way system, you know, because that's just going to be an absolute nightmare. And the money, where is all the money going to come from? So let's just go after two things, prioritise them, put them in order. But I need to know what I'm voting on, because when I cross-reference, they don't match up.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Randall. I'll get Councillor James to come back at the end. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. There are 15 sort of geographical packages of proposals here. We've got 15 minutes each to speak, so that's about 20 seconds a package. You clearly aren't expecting there to be any real meaningful discussion here, so I'm just going to stick to some general points. And I think that there are ideas in this draft that are worth talking about, but there's nothing that actually excites me. A number of years, all the discussion around organizations and all the sort of marketing wizards was about getting your unique selling points. I don't see anything here that is a unique selling point for Daventry. It's supposed to be a vision that people will read and no doubt understand. The Plain English Society would have an absolute field day with this. How does architectural lighting differ from other lighting? How do you positively address a road junction? And what in normal English is a water-based amenity facility? Well, I rather suspect that jargon is there to just hide some of the vagueness in some of these proposals. It's claimed that the town centre will be socially and culturally inclusive. Well, that's not going to be achieved by putting up some fancy lighting. Cultural inclusivity might sound worthy, but there's no reference here to what it means or how it's going to be achieved. It's claimed that parks and green spaces will be linked through a green network integrated into the fabric of the town. And I'm not terribly sure what that means. But you've already decided to build an Eastern Way, where you have by far the biggest green area in the town. And it's now proposed that these wonderful mature trees, I think there are about 20 of them in the roundabout at the bottom of Ashby Road, are going to be taken away, and you're going to build on that part. You're filling in all the significant green areas. There'll be very, very little left to actually expand our greenness. I just feel that this is a nonsense. Then we have entertainment areas. We'll propose one in Market Square, one outside the cinema, one at the top of Sheaf Street, and then there's Bowen Square. Now, it sounds to me as if you imagine that Daventry is going to be like Edinburgh High Street in the height of the festival, something happening in every corner. Well, we do have one regular entertainer. He plays his guitar in Foundry Walk. You propose to take away the roof, so he's got to play in the rain. How do you think that is actually going to help? What sort of street improvements that were made, why the street improvements that were made by this council in the past, why have they now become clutter? How are you going to make things better? How are you going to attract more people by removing bollards? I regard this document as only half-baked. Given a bit of time, it could be a good basis for discussion on what our real vision of Daventry should be, but it is far from that point. I accept that we, as Daventry District Council, are being abolished, but Daventry isn't being abolished. So there is no justification for us imposing on Daventry a vision that the huge majority of Daventry's residents have never even seen. It is not going to get any buy-in to this. It is going to end up with a vision that is regarded with the same derision as a vision that you produced in the past. That is why you will find within the proposals that you're only going to note from the scrutiny committee that this needs a new process. And the fact that we are going to cease to exist is no reason why it shouldn't be entrusted to the town council, which will be new, to the town council and to the new unitary council to see how this is carried forwards.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have to echo entirely what Councillors Ritchie and Randall have said before me, and I think for the relief of all members, I probably won't need to go on too long because most of the arguments have been put. I continue to be disappointed with this town centre vision. As I've said in the past, it's not really much of a vision, and lots of it is loose and woolly. I'd like to remind members of, because this is something I think that people are losing sight of at the moment, that if we look at the hierarchy of towns and so on within Northamptonshire, at the moment we're number 6 on the list. When we go to unitary, we're number 2 after Northampton. Now I know Northampton is huge in comparison to us. It'll have an overwhelming number of councillors in comparison to the Daventry District and South Northants, but we're still an important centre. And I still think a vision is important. Now, what I would say about this exercise, it is a start. Absolutely, it is a start, and it should be a start of the conversation. I think the process has evolved and it has moved forward, and I'm pleased to have seen that. I see now that we have 2 interesting sites, if you like, within the town vision, one of which is the potential for a new leisure centre, and the other is whatever is suggested, I think this water feature and so on the rec. But it's 2 areas where things have been mentioned. I think, having said that though, whatever you propose, there are also maybe unintended consequences. If we're looking at a new leisure centre, well, we have a leisure centre. What's going to be done with the old one? We are supposed to be in a sustainable world now, so you should not be putting up buildings a few years later. Oh, it's obsolete, it's no good, take it down, put something else in a different place. It has to be considered at the same time. So the redevelopment or the reuse of the existing leisure centre must be brought into account into this. Maybe the idea is you don't have a new separate leisure centre in the middle of a roundabout, chop down all the trees, play with all the traffic systems and so on. Maybe you have to do something with the existing one. But my whole point really is that instead of this being a done deal, day one West Northants deliver it, this is nowhere near even starting to be a done deal. Lots of conversations need to be held, and crucially, and I think Councillor Ritchie's point on the scrutiny committee, that those recommendations absolutely should be thrust forward as part of these plans. There needs to be more public consultation. There has been some, but I don't believe you can admit that the consultation and the responses have been anything other than underwhelming. I'm sad that the people of Daventry haven't responded in greater number. Everybody has their reasons. Maybe they weren't aware of it. Perhaps they didn't just like answering all those questions on the survey. They were long-winded and a bit annoying to actually do. I persevered with it. Maybe many people didn't like that. So unfortunately, I cannot support this as it is. I think that the fact that we're talking about it is great. I think the fact that it will go through to West Northants and will continue to be talked about is also good. And I would hope that members here who have their constituencies or wards, whatever we want to call them, close to Daventry, and the Daventry Town Councillors, whoever they will be, or the Daventry Ward Councillors, will support and push this, and will have influence over the other Northampton members who may be less interested. I think that's as much as I want to say. I won't be supporting it. I think we could do a much better job. It's just a start. Let's carry on the conversation and let's push it forward and not pretend that we've actually done it and done a fantastically good and complete job.
4 minutes, Chair.
Vaguely work in progress. I shall finish at that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dabbs. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. It's unfortunate tonight, isn't it, that because of COVID, we haven't really been able to meet together in the beautiful council chamber and sort of ground us in what beautiful town we have. For me, it's really quite simple, actually. It's, yes, nothing is perfect. But what I'm really impressed with is the fact that officers and councillors have been able to bring for tonight, the final meeting of the full meeting of the full council, another legacy and vision for the future of this town. And of course, nothing's perfect, like I said, but it's really interesting, Chair, particularly for you actually, and echoing what we said earlier. I know you've had 20 years of almost negativity. I mean, you can have constructive criticism, I agree with that, but sort of overwhelming negativity on this issue. I want to put it on absolute record as a ward member for Abbey South, which covers the town. I completely echo the views of Councillors Wesley and Councillor James and Councillor Matton, and the support here for producing such a document that we can leave for the new unitary. And I'm certainly going to be standing for the unitary. And again, like all members, hopefully with a footprint in the town, I'll be supporting this. But really on the interesting issue, it's I've been on this council now for 9 years. And of course, like many of us, I'll be sad to see it disappear. And obviously, with 9 years of being in the town, living on the edge of the town, and often campaigning in the town, of course, I've had really only a handful of people in all that time ever mention the outdoor pool, which of course would have limited use. And yet, as we spoke about at the beginning of the meeting, we've got a new cinema going up, which my kids are absolutely really excited to go to, and many families are. And this is the sort of thing that having people buzzing. So, Chair, this has my absolute support, and I'm very proud that on this last full council night, we're able to help support a legacy. And as somebody who was also on the town council before I came to the district council, I'm very pleased to see the wisdom of the town council. I know it was tight, but they supported this as well. Thank you, Jay. It gets my full support.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. We're going to ask Councillor James now, who proposed this, to respond. Thank you, Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, as I said right at the beginning, it is a vision, and a vision is an aspiration of the things that we would like for Daventry. We would like to see it greener. We would like to see better connectivity. We would like to see it as being an attractive place for people to come to shop and to stay longer from the standard hour to an hour and a half, which goes on at present. We would like there to be better leisure facilities in the town too. And we would like to see New Street made as attractive as it once was many years ago when it was a very attractive showpiece with the bowling green there, the lovely well-cut privet hedges round it, and the little pavilion and so on. So we would like that to be. It's a vision. Now, I get the impression that what the Labour opposition wanted here was site-specific things that they could actually see plans of, buildings, and where they were going to be situated, sited, orientated, and a lot. Not possible to do that. This is a vision, an aspiration. All of those technical matters have to be dealt with by engineers, architects, surveyors, and each of those has got a different discipline within it. They will say what is feasible and what is viable, and what you can do and what you can't do. I did hint earlier on in my introduction that there will be a need for further consultations, consents, agreements with umpteen bodies and individuals and the stakeholders themselves. So, please don't mock it for that. As for the last town centre vision, a lot was achieved with that. We completed a substantial part of the education quarter, including the Hill School, which received some acclamation a few days ago. We did complete the Abbey Retail Park. We attracted tens of millions of pounds into Daventry. So we didn't do too badly over that, whilst we were doing other things as well. The New Link Road, the A45, for example, we did relocate the library in order to provide a site for the cinema. All that has been achieved within the life of the current vision. But at least we had a vision, and that's all I'm putting to you now. As for the leisure centre, consider this. Every building, whatever it's used for, suffers obsolescence in various forms. That obsolescence can be economic obsolescence, it can be physical obsolescence, or it can be user obsolescence. We're talking about a period going up to 2035. I'm not suggesting by any means that the building is obsolete physically, and it does have a use, and maybe it could be used for other things, or maybe it could be adapted or combined with something else. But one thing I do know is, from a user's point of view, It is up to capacity. Daventry is going to expand from its existing population, and I'm talking about Daventry town itself. Its existing population of 25,400 will be substantially expanded over the life of this vision. And the present leisure centre, even if it's maintained in wonderful physical condition, and even if it is appropriate for the users of it at that time, leisure changes over a period of time, we do not know whether it will be big enough. And my suggestion is that it probably won't be big enough. So you see, don't try and tie it down to individual buildings. Use a bit of imagination, a bit of thinking about it. Try and be positive. Let's get this through so that it can be a focus for further attention and further criticism, if you will. But please don't carry on this same old stale argument about consultation. This is what the people of Daventry want. It's not just Daventry, it's the villages within the immediate confines of Daventry District. It's villages like Staverton, it's villages like Welton, Wilton, Longbuckby, Norton. It's villages like Everton, Preston Capes, Dodford, Weedon, and Newnham. So there's a lot more to it than just Daventry residents. Please use that imagination and let's get this through. And let's
5 minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor James. Thank you very much indeed for that. I now want to move to a vote now on the resolved items before you. We'll take it in one vote, please, for both resolved items. Can you please set up a vote, please? Is it you, Marina? Thank you.
20 seconds, members.
Thank you. Right, the vote's over. It's 25 for, 3 against, and 1 abstention. So the 2 resolved items are approved. Thank you very much indeed for that. We now move on to the next. We've done the scrutiny reports. Oh, the next one's item 11. A361 footpath adjacent to Dresden Reservoir. I believe that's Councillor Hills.
No, I think it's me.
Oh, sorry, Councillor James. Yeah. I looked on the report. I thought it said the community portfolio holder. I do apologise.
Right, the A361 footpath. This matter has been going on for many years. In fact, I think my predecessor, Chris Long, was involved with it, or my former colleague and predecessor was involved in this. I think it goes right back to when Middlemore began in 2004. And it was brought again to the forefront in 2014 when there was a condition put in the planning permission for Micklemore that the footpath would be improved. It's the footpath alongside the reservoir dam. And there is a feeling, and we're almost all in agreement on this, that there is a perceived danger in walking along that footpath because of its narrowness and because there's no barrier between pedestrians and, of course, like any road, and the actual carriageway itself, which does carry sometimes heavy vehicles going up and down there, let alone the odd speeding car or two. It's been in the background for some little while because the Orbit have only just started doing the roundabout and road higher up to enable access to the Micklemore development, the condition being in the planning permission for that Micklemore development. But anyway, because of COVID, they haven't been able to have site meetings as originally intended for some considerable time. But it's now agreed that the footpath needs widening by at least 1.2 metres. Difficult to widen it further than that without possibly damaging the integrity of the dam wall of the reservoir. But the suggestion is that it be widened by 1.2 metres to give a 3-metre width footpath, which might make people's perception of safety a little bit easier, or make them feel easier when they're walking along that footpath. And I must admit, it does, oncoming traffic does tend to draw you. So the widening of it is the least could be done. It has been suggested that the first, say, metre or a little bit less than that has this sort of deterrent paving on it, as opposed to a verge, because that might deter people walking on it. But of course, there is the argument, which one or two of us have advanced, is that that might tempt people to try and walk on it. But it was suggested, and I think we're moving away from that. The other possibility was to have just a grass verge there, plus the footpath, 3 metres overall. But of course, maintaining a grass verge in that location, which is quite busy traffic-wise, the grass will get dirty, it would get muddy, and it would probably encourage kids to run on it anyway. There's also been a suggestion about a barrier, which could be put up, but that has been ruled out as being unsafe in case a car hit it, and of course the barrier deflected and hit pedestrians on the footpath. So at this moment in time, the only thing that's left is a possibility, which has been suggested, of having some bollards along there in addition to the footpath. But then again, kids like to vault over bollards, so that could
4
even
minutes,
be
Chair.
changed.
Thank you. A minute to go, Councillor James.
All we know at this stage is that there is a proposal to widen this path. As to any further treatments to it, we're going to have to see what the Safety Audit Committee will approve and what is considered safe and reasonable in addition to the widening of the path. So it's a resolved item, and all I'm asking is that progress and the proposed course of action is noted.
Thank you, Councillor James. Do you have a seconder? Who wants the second?
Councillor Hills, Chairman, is indicating.
Oh, Councillor Hills. My apologies, Councillor. I know your hand's not working. Councillor Hills.
Yes, thanks very much, Chairman. Very simple. As Councillor James said, it's a resolved item and that progress and the proposed course of action is noted. I would therefore fully support this and hope that everybody gets behind it.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Hills. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just thinking about the other side of that road, I thought that there were crash barriers on the other side. And if that's the case, couldn't there be crash barriers on the side of the pavement? Because if they work one side of the road, surely they could work the other.
I'll let Councillor James come back on that point. Thank you, Councillor Randall. Councillor Ritchie.
Perhaps I could start by coming back to that point. One of the difficulties, apparently, is the crash barriers on the other side of the road are there to prevent vehicles from going over the embankment and down the slope. They have good sharp edges. They require to be well anchored, which takes up a bit of space. They can't be constructed right against the curb. So although I have been campaigning for a long time for having a barrier, I've got to accept from having been involved in the meeting that that particular type of barrier is no good. The difficulties I don't think are quite as Councillor James put it. The difficulty if you have the sort of barrier that you often see around a town, or you'll find, for example, down at the roundabout by the hotel, that sort of barrier is fine for marking out where pedestrians should be and where they shouldn't cross the road. But if struck by fast traffic, the metal can splinter. You wouldn't have that problem if you had this type of barrier that you have on the east side of the E361. But I say it is the technical problems of putting that sort of barrier there and having any space left for having much of a footpath. I'm glad that progress is now being made. I have brought this issue in several times to this council. There have been many questions that come up. There have been references to a petition that had nearly 700 signatures that was put there. It's not the case that nothing happened because of COVID. This has been going on for years, and I'm glad if Councillor James has been concerned over all these years. Local people have not been aware of his concern, but let's accept that yes, it's great that things are now moving forwards. I'm grateful to the officers who have, both the officers from DDC and from the County Council and from the Canal and River Trust, who really are concerned about this. It reports that I was involved in a meeting at the reservoir. We met on a Friday, and there were some bits of information that we didn't have at the time. They were provided by one of the officers by email at 11 o'clock that night on a Friday evening. And I think it's great that we've got people, I think it's terrible that if they needed to work till that late, but of the interest in the work, that they were willing to actually do that. So I think that that is a good sign. Now, there'll be a great deal of disappointment in Middlemore that, that technically a barrier is going to be difficult. I have put to the officers concerned the idea that, well, if we can't have a barrier, could we at least have a number of bollards that simply mark out and make it clear in the dark or in, in wet weather to traffic where the edge of the road is. You may have a few bollards left over by the time that you take them out of the high street, but something that would be there that would just actually mark the difference. If broadening the footpath is the best thing that can be done to help, then okay, let's broaden the footpath. But I would like to think that a little bit more could be discovered. So let's not just decide that we broaden the footpath and we don't think about what else we could do. I say my choice would be bollards. The other discussion that's been had is whether use can be made of the road on top of the reservoir that belongs to the Canal and River Trust. And we've been given the impression that the Canal and River Trust is perfectly relaxed. It's perfectly relaxed about people using it. I think the difficulty that might come up with it will be that if you've read the front page of the Daventry Express this morning, the concerns that people have walking sometimes late at night, sometimes in the dark, on roads where nobody can actually see them. We had a bit of discussion about whether lights could be there, but I suspect it would need a complete change with cameras and to make sure that they didn't actually lock up the gates at night. So I'm glad that progress is being made, but I hope that further discussion goes into this and that we can find a way of actually moving this forwards.
Thank you, Councillor Ridgely. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me speak again. Yeah, I'm pleased that this is progressing. Personally, I've always been against a barrier. I've always seen it as an impractical solution. The barrier is always going to narrow the path and is always going to make it less accessible for people to go on. I know that's not necessarily what people want to hear, but I think there are other solutions. Widening the path is the solution. Using the Canal and River Trust land and the existing road stroke path above is the solution for this. And of course, you don't need barriers, you need road markings. You need a white line down the side, maybe the coloured cat's eyes that demarcate that there's a path or whatever on the side. This is really, really good news that this is going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. Councillor Olga.
Thank you. I was just reflecting on the difference between this and the Ashby Road. A question that I had is that when politicians work together, how much more that can be done. And I think that people listening to this do not want politicians to refuse the help of their colleagues just because they may be from a different political party. They want us to work together to try and solve some of these crucial problems instead of trying to make political points. So I'm really greatly encouraged at the cross-party support on this, and hopefully by working together, we can help keep our residents safer.
Thank you, Councillor Olga. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. Only quickly from me. Actually, I want to fully echo Councillor Olga's comments there. I think Councillor Ritchie is to be congratulated for how he's represented the people of Middlemore on this issue. He's very passionate and knows put a lot of work into it, and I think he speaks very eloquently on the topic, actually. And I did live for a few years on Middlemore as well, and I completely understand where the residents of Middlemore come from, and I think he's to be thanked for really pushing the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. This report's the result item for noting. All agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. We now move on to our last report, actually, on a full council meeting at Daventry District Council. That's the close down measures, committee minutes sign off. I'm going to ask the monitoring officer, Tony Gillett, to present this report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as you mentioned, this is about the council's close down, and really is a process that allows us to get our minutes signed off and kept as a proper record of the last cycle of meetings. I don't think there's anything more to say on it, to be fair, Chairman. What council are invited to do is to resolve to delegate authority to me to sign off in consultation with the chairman after members of the committees have seen the minutes. So I ask you to invite a proposer and a seconder, please, Chairman.
Thank you indeed, Tony. Can I have a proposer first? Councillor Richard Auger. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. Do I see Councillor Micklewright for his hand up? Councillor Micklewright.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the risk of being really pedantic, I think there is a risk that this report doesn't allow us to sign off the minutes for tonight's meeting, because the resolution talks about committees. The full meeting of the full council is not a committee. And I know in paragraph 4.3 it refers to committees ... and then lists the council under it, but the council is not a committee. A committee is a committee of the council. And I would suggest that the resolution needs a few words adding into it, lest it could be held that the minutes haven't been properly and lawfully approved. I'd also like to ask a question, and that is that under normal circumstances, of course, if a member wants to ask a question on the record about the minutes, I'm not talking about inaccuracies, but if they want to make ask a question about a matter on the record, they would do it at the following meeting. Is there a mechanism here for a member to raise an issue on the record if they wish to do so?
Thank you for those 2 points, Councillor Micklewright. I'll get Tony to come back on this in a second. Councillor Matton.
Thank you. I just thought it worth making the point that whilst this is the last full council meeting, there are in fact still council meetings going on after this meeting, and the council is still operating after this meeting, and all of us councillors are still available to the members of the public that want to get in contact with us and have any concerns. You know, it's not all shutting down tonight. And I just wanted to make that point for the record.
Thank you, Councillor Matton. Councillor Bunting.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask the monitoring officer, and I'm sure I've asked him before in committee, but I think for the rest of council it's important, what the situation will be regarding the sign-off of the audit of the council, for which both the officers and the members are responsible for, which won't be completed until significantly after this council has finished and gone away, and what the processes are, so that the monitoring officer can provide assurance to fellow councillors that this process will be undertaken and the methodology that will be followed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bunting. So over to you, Tony. You've got a few questions there, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think to deal with the first point from Councillor Micklewright about clarity that the delegated authority covers council meetings, we could add in and the final council meeting to the resolution to avoid any issue of clarity. I'm sorry, could Councillor Micklewright remind me of his second point?
Yeah, my second point was that under normal circumstances, if a member wanted to raise a matter on the record, and I'm not talking simply correction of inaccuracies, they would do so at the following meeting. Is there any mechanism whereby members, if they wish to, can raise matters on the record of these and the other meetings that are due to be held in the next few weeks?
Chairman, if I may answer that.
Yes, you may, Tony. Yeah.
The members are going to be invited to comment on the accuracy of the minutes, and I would suggest if there are any questions to go on the record, they can be raised at that point, and they will be discussed with the relevant chairman of the committee, and a note could be added to the committees if it was to the meeting minutes if it was felt appropriate. There is no provision for further meetings. Daventry District Council ceases to exist on the 31st of March. In order that it can have a proper record of its meetings, those need to be signed off by the 31st of March.
Thank you. And Councillor Bunting's point, please.
Councillor Bunting, I'm going to suggest the Section 151 officer may be in a better place to answer that than myself, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Tony. Audra.
Good evening, members.
First time see you for ages. Nice to see you.
Well, thanks very much. And thanks, Mr. Monitoring Officer. There's two things really with regard to the let's get my years right. The 1920 accounts, as you know, are still not signed off, and that's not because we didn't produce them when we should have, and it's not because they haven't been audited by our auditors. One of the things that's holding that up is a going concern note that all authorities involved in all authorities, and especially because of the two new unitaries. So that has still to be signed off. But because that affects us all, and at our last meeting, as long as there's no major changes, that was delegated to myself in consultation with the chair. So I'm pleased to say there hasn't been any major changes, and I am expecting those accounts to be signed off before the 31st of March. With regards to 2021, just like all the other services of the council, DDC may be ending, but what we do isn't. And all of the statutory requirements will be fulfilled by the new council. So we'll still prepare the accounts, but it will be the new 151 who signs them off. And with all the assurances that come from an audit and all of those systems that provide the information. So that will go through the same governance arrangements like we do now with the council, in line with the statutory deadlines, which for 2021 and indeed 21-22 have actually been extended because of the COVID situation. So whereas before we would have had to produce the accounts by the 31st of May, we've now got until the 31st of July, and subsequently the external auditors have also been given longer to sign those off. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Audrey, for that. Does that answer your question, Councillor McCall? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bunting.
It does mine, but I'm slightly more informed, perhaps, Chair, than other members are. And it was really for the assurance of the rest of the council that I wanted the monitoring officer and the Section 151 officer to explain the process, so that when they ride off into the sunset, they actually know that they're not leaving whatever behind. Thank you.
Sinking ship. That's the point. Yeah. Thank you much indeed, Nick. Are there any other questions? Thank you. I just want to say, from my perspective as chair of the West Northampton Shadow Authority, normally in the council, where the chairman, if I was chairman of Daventry and I wasn't standing for re-election, I would come back at the AGM in May to actually hand over to the new chairman. And I'm asking that question about the West Northampton Shadow Authority because that's on May the 20th. Now, on May the 10th, all existing councillors who aren't going on to the unitary are councillors until May the 10th. After May the 10th, there's only one meeting then, which is the chairman, myself, might be asked to attend to hand over to the new chair of the new West Northampton unitary as the existing chair of the Shadow Authority. So I'll keep you informed on that if that's the case. I'm waiting for advice on that, and it's not been clarified yet. But it just comes back to this point of the handover, really. Going back to Nick's point, it's making sure we tie everything up right in the correct way and hopefully that will be done there as well. So thanks, Audrey, for that. It's very helpful feedback. You haven't asked, no one's asking any questions. So you must have done a good job there. So well done to you. I wish you all the very best, by the way, in your new role. Now, I think that's it. Urgent business, there is no urgent business. So that's all. Sorry, Tony.
Chairman, we need to get a vote on the resolution, please.
Of course, Tony. Yes, I'm sorry. My apologies. You're quite right. I'm glad you're still with it. That's good. So we need to have a resolved item on. This is on the close down measures. Can you please all vote?
Mr. Chairman, are we adding some wording to the resolution?
What word are you suggesting, sir?
Well, Tony suggested that we add a few words to it to reflect my query about.
Oh, your comment about full council, yeah. What words do you recommend, Tony?
Chairman, the resolution reads to delegate authority for the sign-off of the final sets of committee and council minutes to the monitoring officer in consultation with the chair of the relevant committee and council.
Many thanks for the clarification there. Happy with that, Councillor McElroy?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So on that amended resolved item, can we move to the vote, please, Marina?
20 seconds, councillors.
Thank you. Thank you much indeed, councillors. Well, it's nice to finish on a NEMCON 100% vote in favour, 34, none against, no abstentions. So that's actually carried. That resolved item's carried. So thank you for that. That's the amended resolved item, I should say. So that's carried. Right. So that we now move on to that's the meeting now completed. There's no urgent business. I just want to remind members we're going to a private session shortly, 5 minutes time. You've all had the email giving you the link to go on to that private session where we can actually celebrate the success of Daventry over the 47 years of